What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Punk Rock Radar. Today, we're continuing our series of finding the best and worst song from a band's entire discography. And today, we're doing my favorite band of all time, my introduction to punk rock, and that is Green Day. And I'm joined by Elliot. So, Elliot, this was pretty easy for me. I barely had to re-listen. I'm pretty familiar with most of these tracks, but how did it go for you?
It was easy at first, and then I just kept thinking about it throughout the week, and then I had to go back and re-listen to everything, and I was just like, no, actually, this is it. Actually, this is that. So at first, like, gut instinct seemed the way to go, and then I started questioning them, and then some of these I even went back to my gut instinct. So I thought it was going to be easy, but it was a little more difficult than I thought it was going to be, especially because the later Green Day stuff I've listened to probably only once or twice. Some of these records, like 21st Century Breakdown was one I listened to like once back in the day, and then only recently have revisited it a couple times. And Uno Dos Tres up into Saviors is probably only been like once or twice I've listened to some of these records, so I had to go through.
For me, it was really just the trilogy I had to revisit. But like, I love 21st. I think I like 21st more than I like American Idiot now. We'll get there though. But yeah, it is 7 a.m. on Saturday morning. So thank you for getting up early to bang this out. The first album we're going to hit is going to be, we're just doing the combo, the 1039 Smoothed Out Slappy Hours. This is what I remember as the album. So I think most people do. So why don't you go first, man? What is your favorite song on 1039?
I mean, the song is just, when I hear 1039 and I'm thinking of what is my favorite track, the gut instinct, the one that always just comes to my head immediately is Paper Lanterns. And I don't know, to me, Paper Lanterns also just always seems like the most, like, obviously, I think Green Day already had, like, their sound pretty well established even around this time. Yeah. Like, they only tweaked it and cleaned it up a little bit, but I feel like this is like the most fleshed out version of what we'd get coming up with like Kerplunk and stuff like that. I feel like it's like the most complete song on here personally, and I always liked it. It's a catchy track. Paper Lanterns is my pick. I've always gone back to it. It's probably my favorite. But what do you think is the best on 39 Smooth, John?
Yeah, I'm looking just look at the track list. I would consider At the Library, Don't Leave Me, Going to Pasalacqua, Judge's Daughter, Paper Lanterns, 409 in Your Coffee Maker.
Yes.
Only a View on the back end is really good, but I went with
I Want to Be Alone is a banger as well.
Yeah, I'm going to Pasalacqua.
Okay.
I don't know how, when, why, but this was the first song I heard off of this album, which is strange because this would have been in the like cassette / CD days. I think it may have been some sort of live bootleg or whatever, but I love this track. And I remember like I got back into this particular album. There was a band called Up Syndrome way back in the day that I randomly picked up their CD and they covered this and they actually knocked it out of the park. But yeah, I'm going to Pasalacqua. I love this track.
No, it's a great one. Like you said, everything you listed is like a super solid track. There's really no like wrong answer here for the best for I'd say the majority of these tracks. But there is a correct answer for the worst one, John. And I think we both had the exact same one here. So I'll go ahead and reveal it. It is the song Rest, which I mean, just listening to this, it's obviously the worst song. I don't know if anybody's out there who's going to contest that. I would be quite interested in the argument for why it's not the worst song. I mean, I guess it's still not like, especially for like, early 1989, 1990 Green Day, it's they've put together this whole entire album and it's whatever. It's a skip for me personally, but yeah, what do you have to say about Rest, John?
Yeah, As for me, like I don't really skip it. It's a nice break. Like a lot of these songs are very similar, but like it's just like the one that I'm never gonna go to this CD and specifically seek out this song, and I think that's why. Like I feel like it's all right on the album. I wouldn't pull it off. Like, dude, I'll be honest. I consider the Knowledge cover just because it's
me too.
it's like it's so inferior to the original. I don't, and it's like wow, like it's only like a year or two after the original, so
I
it's
know,
a
it's
little
funny.
strange.
To me, I don't know. I hear it. I'm like, is this supposed to be shitty? And I'm like,
Yeah.
I feel like it is, and so it's kind of funny. It's kind of charming in that way of just kind of how like bad the cover is. So
It's the only song on here that's a staple of the live show too. So
yeah, really, that's funny. That's
all right.
awful.
Well, we'll move on. Next album is gonna be Kerplunk.
Yes.
So this for best, very very tough. Like in my mind, I'm like it's Welcome to Paradise, but like that, I think the Dookie version is far superior. So like I didn't want to pick it. Let me see what I actually did pick. Okay, yeah, I was considering 2,000 Light Years Away. I considered One of My Lies, 80 Android, Holden Caulfield. But I ended up on One for the Razorbacks. I could be wrong, and I meant to check it, but it's it's still stupid early. I feel like this was on a soundtrack somewhere in the mid '90s, which is where like I remember owning the soundtrack. I could be wrong, but yeah, I'm going One for the Razorbacks. I think it's something to do with the Arkansas the college, but yeah, I love this track, dude.
I do remember seeing this on the soundtrack. I can't remember which one it is either, but I have like the movie in my mind, like the poster almost. It was kind of like I think it was like a college comedy or something like that. I can't remember. We'll have to look it up. But
Yeah, I'm gonna Google it now while you do your pick.
Yeah, I believe it definitely was on the soundtrack. But I love One for the Razorback. That's a great choice. Yeah, 2,000 Light Years Away was a possibility, but I kind of narrowed it down between two, which is the first one I heard off of Kerplunk, which is Who Wrote Holden Caulfield, which I put on like so many mixes back in the day. What a great song. But I ended up landing on the track 80, which I think I just really love that bass intro with Billy's vocals over it. And then there's just like once again, Green Day. Billy is like such a great like writer, especially during this time in the '90s. Like his lyrics were like nobody else was doing it. It was so good. Like on here, there's a lyric: "Anxiety has got me strung out and frustrated, so I lose my head or bang it up against the wall." There's so many just like frustrated teenager, just these. It's so good. Like the way he words things and the way he writes, it's very unique for him. And 80 I think is a great example of that. I love the lyrics on it, love the little bass intro, love the chorus. So but I guess we'll get into the worst here. Did you figure out which soundtrack it was on?
I think I'm wrong. I
Okay,
I can't find
I swear
it.
I couldn't remember seeing it.
But
So
let's see. So I kind of did a cop out here, but I don't feel bad because it's right in the middle of the album. But I'm going with the Trey Cool song, "Dominated Love Slave." Like I feel like it's All by Myself is fine because it's a hidden track, but this is not a hidden track. This is like what is this? 1, 2, 3.
Right in the middle of the album.
Yeah, it may be the end of the A side, but this song is this is the first bad song across the first two records, and it's for me it's unlistenable and it's a clear skip. Like I get that it's a joke, but like put it at the end.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Having it right in the middle is pretty jarring. It is terrible. Like, I don't really find it funny either.
No, it's not funny.
Yeah, so I mean, I could have went with Dominated Love Slave. It's like objectively the worst thing on here, but I just didn't want to do it. You did it, so I had to pick something, which I guess I'll go with Private Ale. It's just kind of the more forgettable track on here. It's not a bad song by any means. Like I think the chorus is pretty catchy. It's just in comparison to everything else that's around it, it just doesn't do as much. And I sometimes like forget what it sounds like or forget the melody to it and stuff like that. Where I remember like a good bit of everything else on Kerplunk. So pretty vividly. So
Yeah, let's be clear. Outside of Dominated Love Slave, there's no bad songs on Kerplunk. But Elliot and
yeah,
I didn't want to have the same worst pick for two albums in a row. So
that's
that's
true. You know what? Yeah,
yeah.
Dominated Love Slave. John got a free pass. He did all of these first, and he sent me all these, and I was like, this motherfucker took all the worst songs. He took all the worst songs away from me. So.
All right, we'll move on here to Dookie. Dude, I was listening to this last night. Not for this, just because I listen to it all the time. And one thing I realized is that there's a lot of, and I never realized this really, like listening in the '90s. Like, there's a lot of like fluff at the end of the tracks, especially like on the top half, where it just kind of goes on for a little bit. I think Burnout has something, Chomp has something,
Yeah, yeah.
like Longview has something. Welcome to Paradise has that very long kind of transitionary
Yeah,
period. There's a lot. I never realized that. So when we redo the tier list eventually, I may have a new favorite. Just to keep people on the edge of their seats. But I'll go first here with my favorite track on my probably favorite album of all time, even to contradict what I just said. I'm going with the first Green Day song I ever heard, the first punk song I ever heard, and it's going to be, to no one's surprise, Basket Case. Yeah, dude, I freaking love this track. It's probably my favorite song of all time. And there's nothing really to say that I haven't said on this channel 10 times already, but like I credit this song for me liking this style of music. I think it's the perfect pop punk song. And I still listen to this probably weekly, and I heard it 30 years ago. So, I mean, to me, that's like a standout for the best song, the best punk song.
No, I mean I remember hearing Basket for the first time. Was watching the music video. It was like I think there was some on-demand channel where you could watch all these different music videos, or there was a website I think on Music Jesus as well, or Music Video Jesus, and I would watch all these. And I watched the Basket Case music video like daily for a long time when I first heard it. It's like one of the best punk rock music videos of all
Yes.
time. It's like an amazing single, like a bit overplayed maybe to an extent just because it's such a popular song, and so like I get sick of hearing it a little bit sometimes. But I think obviously like when I first heard it, I was addicted to Basket Case. So obviously, it's a great song. It's possible to wear an amazing song out. So, but I guess I'll go with my worst pick here, which there was a couple ones I was considering. Like I really do like the intro track, Burnout, Longview. I absolutely love that bass intro and the subject matter of the song I find very entertaining. But I decided to go with just like the song that always stuck with me. The melody sticks with me, and also it's just a great start to the B-side, which is She. It's just like such an it's like a near perfect song in my opinion. Just like the bass coming in, and then Billy Joe's melody, and just like the lyrics are like really good. It's some of my favorite writing is here, like a sullen riot penetrating through her mind, smash the silence with a brick of self-control. Just some peak Billy Joe lyrical content on this one, and it kicks off the B side with an absolute bang. One of the most catchy songs, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I absolutely love She, so that's gonna be my pick.
There's no bad picks here, right? I mean, I would consider, I mean, for my favorite, I would probably consider, I love Having a Blast. I don't know what it is with that very simple intro riff, but it's just, I don't know, it just hits me. Longview, Welcome to Paradise, obviously She, When I Come Around, in the end, and even FOD, like FOD is so good.
FOD was in consideration.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard it for a while, Dookie, and going back and I was like, FOD really is like a fucking
so
banger.
good,
It was like I was like I almost wanted to pick a little bit of a deeper cut, but I think She is just objectively a better song for me personally, in my opinion. So,
All right. So
But I guess we'll get into the worst here, and I think we're starting with you, John. And like this is going to be tough, right?
yeah,
So what are you picking here, and what's your reasoning?
I'm picking Sassafras Roots. I just like when I'm looking at this track list, there's like one single song where I'm like, okay, like it doesn't immediately come to me like what the song sounds like. And I mean, I've listened to this album probably 1,000 times. So if I can't like if I someone says Sassafras Roots, I don't know if it's immediately coming to mind like what the chorus is or anything. So for that sole reason, I'm picking it. When I went back, I was like, I like this song, but I like every single song on here. It's the least memorable. That's the only reason I'm picking it. It's by no means a bad song.
Yeah, I think even back then, I think it was like, Basket Case plays and She's plays,
Yeah, it's a tough spot.
and then Sassafras Roots come on. And it's not like a major dip. It's not a major dip, but you notice that dip in quality because you just came off of two of the best Green Day songs in a row, and then you hear Sassafras Root. And I don't know if it's the song or if it's just the placement, but you do kind of notice a dip. And I've always noticed that with Sassafras Roots, where like I even considered it. And I think it's mostly to do with its placement because what comes on after it is When I Come Around.
Hmm.
So it's in a bad position as it is. But I considered it. I didn't want to go with Sassafras Roots for yours, but it's interesting that you thought that was the worst because that was like in consideration for mine. But I went ahead and went with Pooling Teeth. It's not a bad song by any mean. I think it has a really good melody. It's got some good lyrics. It's just when I was younger, I would actually skip this one because it was slower and I didn't want to listen to slow songs. And I'm just gonna do it for teenage Elliot right now and just say Pooling Teeth is the worst song on Dookie. I think its placement on the album is good.
Yeah.
But yeah, especially when I was younger, it was like I listened to Welcome to Paradise, then Pooling Teeth comes on, and I was like, "What the hell?" And I know that after Pooling Teeth, Basket Case is coming on, so I would skip it all the time. So I'm doing it for that reasoning alone. For the most part, obviously, Dookie is like a near perfect album, if not perfect. So there's really not too much to say negative about it. Pulling Teeth is still a good song.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess we'll move on here to the follow up to Dookie, which a lot of people consider uh, their best album. A lot of people, usually it's a big battle between Insomniac and Dookie for what is the best Green Day album, or at least what is the best '90s Green Day album. Usually just the best one
Yeah.
in general.
I think it may be
But
the best now.
yeah, no,
It's so
I would
good.
say I feel like Insomniac is going up there with Lagwagon's Trashed and Blink-182's Dude Ranch as one of these like 10 out of 10s. It's really hard to pinpoint a weak spot on it. But we're going to talk about the positives first, and I'll start this off here. When I think of Insomniac, it always goes to this. There's a lot of great songs on it. Obviously, like Stewart of the Ave, Westbound Sign, Walking Contradiction, Armitage Shanks. But I went with Geek Stink Breath. I absolutely love Geek Stink Breath. The lyrics on this are just peak Billy Joe writing once again. Just these like fucking, just like horrid lyrics about just being like a loser, and it's really good. Like one of the lines in is every hour my blood is turning sour and my pulse is beating out of time, and it's just like so much just nihilism at its peak here in Insomniac. And I love Geek Stink Breath. I think it's just such a great song, and so it's in my top five Green Day songs easily. And so, but yeah, what would you pick for Insomniac?
Yeah, I want to tell like a quick story about Insomniac, and it's coming to me now when you mentioned the lyrics of Geek Stink. So in 1995, I was still subscribing to this magazine called Disney Adventures, and they had like an article. It was just like it was the end of the year superlatives for like music, and one of the like the categories because the kids magazine was grossest lyrics. And I think it was either Geek Stink or Brain Stew. I think it was Brain Stew that won. And there's a little blurb about the Green Day album Insomniac, and I was like, Green Day has another album. I was like 8 or 9 years old, so like, you know what I mean. So that's when I got it for Christmas that year in 1995. So That was my how I found out they had a new album.
Yeah, I mean, there's some gross ones. It's like I'm picking scabs off my face. That's how one ends, and it's rotting out my teeth.
I
It's
think it
about
was Keep
smoking
Stink.
methamphetamine too. There's a lot of gross lines on this one.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wish in one hand, shit in the other. It's a very gross song, so I love it. So
I can't imagine that a Disney magazine would be talking about the lyrics to that song in 2024.
no, absolutely
No.
not. That's crazy. Even that even happened. But yeah, go ahead, John. What is the best one on Insomniac here?
Yeah, this was, dude. I feel like it may be Armitage Shanks. It could be several, but ever since I was a kid, I've said it was Westbound Sign. So, what's really the point in changing it up now? This may be the first song I ever learned to play on the guitar. I can't remember if it was this or Damn It. I don't remember. Like, I used to go to this place, Alto Music in Poughkeepsie, New York, and I would bring in Green Day and Blink CDs when I was very young, and I feel like it was this one. So it's just kind of stuck with me all these years. I mean, there's really not a bad song on here. This was the absolute hardest for me to pick best and worst, but I just went with the one that I've been telling people for close to 30 years. So I'm gonna stick with it. Westbound Sign.
Oh yeah, do it for little John.
Yeah.
Do it for '90s John reading Disney Adventure magazine. So, no, Westbound Side's a great song. It's nothing wrong with it, and I can definitely see that little guitar intro in the beginning being something that like a kid would learn first thing on guitar.
Yeah.
One of the first songs I learned on guitar was a Green Day song as well. It comes later in their discography, and we'll talk about it. But also Misfits dig up her bones. I learned that for some reason, which is 4 chords, so
Yeah.
anyone can.
Well,
But
all
let's get
these
it.
are.
Yeah, it's yeah. But let's get into the worst here, which once again we said this is the hardest to pinpoint. The armor around Insomniac is chink proof. It's like you cannot do anything. You cannot get through it. So there's no bad songs on here. So, but let's if I had to pick one, and I was thinking about it and going through these, I decided to go with Panic Song.
Yeah.
Um,
Because of the
and
build up.
huh?
Because of the build up, right?
No, I like the build up. So I like the build up. I like the really fast pace bass. That do. I actually think the build up is great. I think it just builds up into a kind of just okay Insomniac song. It's like it's not a particularly standout. I think Panic Song is just like it's a passable Green Day track. I think the build up is way too cool for the song that it becomes. I just think it's all right. Like I think it's good. I think it's a pretty standard. This is standard all right for in the terms of Insomniac, by the way, not just like for Green Day as a whole or punk as a whole. For in the bounds of Insomniac, it's just an all right song. So I feel like the build up just doesn't the payoff doesn't match it as much, but that's kind of the only real reasoning I had for this one. There really wasn't too much because I still like the song. It's not a skip by any means. I've never thought about skipping Panic Song, but if I had to pick one, this was the reasoning I was able to concoct in my brain to justify picking Panic Song. So, but John, what was your justification for this one? Because I want to know, because I actually like this song a lot.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorites on the album.
I like them all, like I said. But for me, Panic Song, dude, after the build up, I think it's badass. It's like it would be like one of my favorites if it stopped like at heading for a cheap escape. So I was surprised when you picked Panic. But
Yeah.
I went with Brat, and I don't know if it's the lyrics or what. I've just never really connected with it, and it's right after Armitage. It's by no means a bad song, but if I were to skip a single song in this album, it would probably be Brat, and
Man.
I really don't know why. Like,
I don't either. I think the opening line is like iconic. Mom and Dad don't look so hot these days. I don't know, that to me that always sticks in my head. Like I think, but I mean, if there's something, I mean, like again, if you picked any of these, it would be pretty hard to pinpoint the reasoning for. So if it's just a feeling you have, where it's just like this song doesn't click with me as much as everything else. That's kind of all you can do with Insomniac,
Dude,
right?
and like I said, I didn't go back and re-listen. I just looked at the track list and I was like, this is the first one that came to mind for ones I don't like. If I had gun to my head, I'm picking Brat. There was no further analysis to it whatsoever. I was just like, okay. I mean, I love this album, but that's the name of the game. I got to pick one. I'm picking this one.
And there was a gun, and it was to
Yes.
John's head, and I was holding it. So, but let's move on to Nimrod. So let's go to Nimrod, which was for a while. I think, like, especially when I was younger, I would tell people it was probably my favorite Green Day album. Also, it's the one that I found out my mother owned after I got into Green Day. That it was just, I think it was literally she owned it. I'm almost 100% sure, just for Good Riddance,
Yeah,
Time of Your
of
Life.
course.
Yeah, yeah, that's the only reason my mother owned the album. I guarantee you, because a lot of these songs still go pretty fucking hard, and Nimrod is an absolutely solid Green Day album. So let's get into the best, and we'll have you start off, John. So what do you think is the best song on Nimrod?
This is another one where it's like I've said this so many times, so I'm just like sticking with it, and I'm going with Scattered. And
Great.
I feel like I've got this. This is '97, I want to say. Uh, I considered Nice Guys Finished Last. I used to love that music video
It's
too. It
so
was
good.
from
Me
the
too.
Varsity Blues soundtrack.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
I considered. I was like uptight, even though it's super simple. I considered Hashinka, and I consider the one you picked. I won't say it, but All the Time is. I love this album. It's so hard for me to pick my favorite Green Day album because I feel like all these have such like a unique flavor. There is this one was not hard for me to pick worst though. I feel like there is a little fluff on this one. There's a ton of songs, so it's okay. But for me, I'm going with Scattered. It's Yeah, I just think the melody is just incredible.
It's good. That's the one I had written down before I saw you had it. So off the top of my head, when I was going through Nimrod songs, the melody is just so good on Scattered. It's so infectiously catchy, and so I agree with that pick 100%. But it was pretty difficult for me to pick my favorite. One, you stole mine.
Yeah.
Two, it's just like I felt like there was so many songs I re-listened to it twice that I just every single time I was like, oh, I like this one a lot. I think this is the one. Redundant was one of them, and I think Redundant is honestly has some of the best Green Day melodies as well, and it's one of their best tempo tracks. I think it's absolutely kick ass, and obviously, Nice Guys Finish Last is just an absolute banger of an intro song, and that was one of the first Green Day songs I ever heard. Loved the music video as well, but I decided to go with kind of a stranger one, which is Prosthetic Head. And man, dude, just the clean strumming guitar and like Billy Joe's vocals are so good on Prosthetic Head. So it's just like it's so infectiously catchy. It's so good. And once again, I'm all about these like these Green Day. I love these '90s Green Day lyrics. So this has some of the most Billy Joe '90s Green Day lyrics off the album. I think with the plastic eyes looking through a numbskull, and there's so many good lines in this. It's just Billy Joe is just such a great writer for punk, and it shouldn't be understated. So I know they definitely got shit on in the '90s for being mainstream and people saying they're not punk. People say this album isn't punk, and we've had comments that say that. And I'm like, the lyrics are so fucking punk, dude. Like on a lot of these, like it's so good. It's some of the best writing. It's so. But yeah, I guess we're going to the worst here, John. And I guess what do you think of Prosthetic Head? And then what is your worst pick?
Yeah, I love Prosthetic Head. I would totally consider it. It's like it's got such a vibe to it.
Definitely.
Yeah, but for my worst, this was so easy for me. There's one song that can single-handedly like it could wreck a Green Day concert. I feel like even their diehard fans, when they start playing this, are like, "Oh God, here we go," and that is King for a Day. Elliot, I don't know if you've ever seen them play this live, but it could potentially go on for 10, 15 minutes, and this is like one of the most egregious examples of when Billy Joe's doing his hey ho, hey ho. The Green Day fans will know. Like that's literally you're gonna get that the entire concert. But this is where it's like, oh my god, like hey ho, we get it. Just play another song. And on top of that, I think this is clearly the worst Goofy song. Like this feels like you know how the Offspring will have like a couple of like middling tracks and then that one that kind of sticks out for the radio, but it's like it's goofy and you don't really like it. Like that is this for me, and it's the first time like outside of Dominated Love Slave that it's kind of like this is a weird spot and this song's bad. Yeah, this is a clear skip. It's the only bad song really on this record.
Let's see here. This is Green Day's "Pretty Fly for a White Guy" moment here, according to John.
Why don't you get a job? I would say.
Why don't you get a job? Yeah, it's a better comparison. Yeah, "King for a Day" is not a particularly good song. When I hear it, it's definitely not one of my favorites. I don't know if I heard it. I've only seen them live a long time ago, and I cannot remember if they did. I haven't done it again.
You'd remember.
I did. Okay, they probably didn't do it then. I didn't. Usually, I don't want to shell out the money to go see Green Day, especially because they stopped being my favorite band a while ago. I still love them, obviously, but obviously you're a much bigger fan than I am to put up with all that. It sounds like quite a time. But if I had to pick one, and you pick King for a Day, I was going to go with Worry. Well, so the right answer, obviously, is Last Ride In.
Yeah.
But it's a bit of a cop-out. It's an instrumental track, but it is a long one. I'm not picking it, but that is the correct answer. But we're going to go with Worry Rock. Worry Rock to me is just one I could not remember for the life of me what it sounded like. I couldn't remember the melody, and listening to it, I'm like, if I had to pick one on here, I feel like this does have a bit of a weak melody. I'm not super into the how he's singing the chorus on this one, and it's not particularly memorable. Not a bad song by any means, but it's just not a very memorable one in my opinion.
I like it, man. I like the melody on like Where Do We Go From Here and What Did You Do with the Drugs? Yeah,
it was hard. It was hard because I every time I was just like I even considered Platypus. I was like, it's just kind of a fast song. And I was like, nah, it's too good. And then I was like, considered even the one that you really like, the Hasha Shinka one, because I was like, it goes on for a little too long, maybe. Like I'm just trying to grasp for something because you took King for a Day, and I can't pick Last Ride In good faith, so I got to go with Worry Rock just because I couldn't personally remember what it sounded like. So
I feel like with Hashinka, I used to date a girl with a weird name who moved away, so I kind of like gravitated towards it. I don't know why. Like I don't know if that's the reason why like I like it. So, but that's
it's not bad. I feel like it just goes on a little too long.
Yeah, but we'll move on now. Well, this is like I feel like we're past like the golden years. We get into I love Warning now. Honestly, it's like I listen to it all the time, but. It was a tough pill to swallow at first.
Yeah. This was definitely the moment where a lot of people were like, Green Day's not punk anymore. They're like alternative rock. They're power pop. And this is like a power pop Green Day album. But it's a good one. I think it's great. So. Downtown, lights up and shining on me. But yeah, what were you saying? It was a tough pill to swallow for you at first. Warning.
So this is 2000. So at this point, like I was already into my like Fat Wreck phase. So for Green Day to kind of come out with this, this is tough for like a 14, 15-year-old to kind of grasp what's going on here.
Especially one who's listening to Fat Wreck at the time.
Yeah. So, but I've really come around to this album to the point where like I don't think there's really like a terrible song, and I think there's a lot of standouts and a lot of really interesting things melodically happening. I even appreciate the like kind of weird production now.
I like it a good bit, and I guess we'll start. I guess you're starting us off this.
I think it's you.
It is me.
Yeah.
So I'll start us off with my favorite song, and there's a couple considerations. One, once again, iconic music video with Warning was in consideration.
Yes.
I love that music video where he just goes around and all the little things they tell you not to do. Don't eat and swim. Don't stare at the microwave. It's just such a simple concept that it works really well. Blood, Sex, and Booze are in consideration. I think it's a great song as well. Your pick I considered definitely, and a lot of these. I even listened to Macy's Day Parade, and I was like, maybe this could be my favorite one. But in the end, I went with this song that every time it comes on, I remember every lyric. I know the
Yeah.
entire melody. I can sing along in the car every single time, which is Waiting. And what a fucking great single. Just one of the catchiest Green Day songs ever, in my opinion. So it's so good.
And yeah, dude, Waiting
Uh,
is so good, man. They were like, man, this guitar riff is so catchy that we could just write all the lyrics over this with the same
It is.
tune.
It's so
Yeah.
good. It's so simple, and the melody is so great, and just that. Oh, it's so good. So I love Waiting.
Yeah.
I think it's the best single, at least, if not the
Yes.
best song, and I think it's the best song on here as well. But you go ahead and what do you think is the best song on Warning, John?
It was very tough. I want to say that talk about an album with a very, very strange track list where you have two of the singles all the way at the bottom right before, like, this is very, very strange track list. But I'm going with Castaway, and
Hmm.
I think Waiting is probably 1B. It may even be 1A. I just wanted to kind of to call out a weirder song. But I love Castaway. I think I had it in my top 5 Green Day songs. Like, at the time, I was just really vibing with Warning, and I considered a lot of these tracks. Deadbeat Holiday is really good. I think Church on Sunday is really good. Minority, like, this is a really good album. It's really slept
Yeah.
on, but this is, for me, this is like a really just a good record to just put on when you're just like hanging out. You don't want to be like overwhelmed by anything. It's just, yeah, I've really come around to this record, and I'm picking Castaway.
Castaway is a great song. Like I said, this is like a really good like a power pop Green Day
Yeah.
album, and it's really good. Honestly, if we're counting it as a power pop album, it's like one of the best power pop albums of all time, up there with like a Third Eye Blind and stuff like that. So, but I guess we'll get into the worst here, which for me it wasn't too difficult. The one you picked was also in consideration, but the one I decided to go with was Misery. It's a 5 minute long track.
Yeah.
I don't think it really justifies it being. It's a little bit too theater kid esque, a little too theatrical. Seems too much of like a stage play song with the incorporation of like the gypsy music and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And I'm wondering if this is like one of the first instances of like a punk band using gypsy style music or something like that. But I wonder when Go Go Bordello came out. I wonder if they came out before this or after.
I think
Either way,
before.
a little after, but either way, Go. I love Gogol. I can't even say it. Bordello. The first album by them is so good, and in comparison, it's way better than Green Day trying to incorporate like kind of gypsy music for 5 minutes long. It's a bit of a drag. So I'm not particularly into it. I don't think it's like terrible or anything, but definitely the one that if I had to think of like the worst, it's the one I pinpoint to
Yeah.
like almost immediately.
I think Misery is the correct answer, honestly.
Yeah.
So you have one with the, like an organ, and you have one with the harmonica, and you took the organ. So give me the harmonica, which I find equally offensive. I think Hold On. I think it's got pretty good, like, good verse, good chorus. There's just like kind of
Yeah.
weird elements that take me out of the song, but again, like, I don't think I'm skipping Hold On. I think it's fine, but on this record of all pretty strong tracks, it's, to me, it's the weakest one. It may just be the harmonica.
No, I think the harmonica, I don't know if it's the production or what. It's a bit jarring. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't sound very good. I'll say that. It sounds like very cheaply done. It almost sounds like one of these folk punk bands I used to listen to. But all of it sounds bad on the folk punk bands,
Yeah.
and it's like the harmonica is just like the one part that sounds off on the Green Day song. Hold on. So definitely considered it for that jarring harmonica. So what's a worse use of harmonica? Is it cocktails or Hold On?
There's no good use of harmonica. I think that's just something for like a 5-year-old to annoy you with in the back seat, and that's it. Keep it off of studio albums.
Hey, I used to have the thing that holds the harmonica. I was able to play guitar with it. I was really into folk punk, so never recorded a song with it though, so it's all good. On the street, it's fine. If you're
Yeah.
playing on a street corner for money, bring that harmonica out. But yeah, we'll move on to the next one here, which is um I would say Green Day's big comeback in the 2000s. I mean, massive comeback.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
mean,
oh,
this
yeah.
album was everywhere. Every one of these singles on this album were played on the radio. This is my introduction into Green Day. I was about, let's say, like 13 or 14, around that age. Uh, oh yeah, like 13 probably, or 12 actually. So I just remember my friend getting this for his birthday. He had a untitled Blink 182 birthday cake with the smiley face on it, and then he got the parental advisory version of the Green Day album. I remember we were all really hyped about that because there was an edited version as well
Yeah.
of all of these ones back then. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, I guess we'll get into. You go ahead and tell us what is the best song on American Idiot.
I just underrate your love.
John.
So I think this may be weird to some people, but I would say outside of the trilogy and possibly Father of All, this is probably the Green Day album now that I listen to least. And it's a record that I got on release day. I explicitly remember I was in college at the time when this came out, and my college was right down the street from the Poughkeepsie Galleria. So I had picked this up at Best Buy, and I just went home and I just had the lyrics, and I listened to it like nonstop for like several hours on day one. Just like, cause there's so much to digest here. Like at the time I hadn't really, I think it was like probably one of the first like concept or whatever you want to call this albums that I've ever had. So I was really trying to like delve in and figure everything out. And right now, I don't know if I have many of these on my playlist just because of how they're like combined tracks where you can't just really listen to one song. Like, you
Yeah,
gotta make
I
a
don't know.
commitment.
I don't know why they did this artistic, like playwright decision to combine all these songs that obviously aren't meant to be attached together. They're obviously separate songs. It's
Yeah,
very irritating.
but if I like listening now, I'm like, there's a couple I consider. Like, I like Boulevard, but to me it's kind of, I don't really like to say played out, but I feel like it kind of is.
Oh, it totally is.
I really like She's a Rebel, and
song.
I like What's Her Name, but I feel like I'm saying it's played out, and I'm gonna end up picking a single. But I love Holiday. I love that chorus. It just hits so big. And the verses have a cool feel to them. I think, like, after all these years, I don't know if I've ever wavered. I think Holiday is my favorite song.
That's fair. Holiday is a great single. So, bang bang all the broken gas, man. It's like it's a hype song. I remember Holiday probably was like my favorite for a while when I was younger too. The songs I considered, and I will say these big. It's interesting that I kind of agree with you. American Idiot, I feel like has aged not incredibly well.
Yeah.
I think there's a little bit of a dated quality to it. Amazing for the time it came out, but I think there is some albums that start to surpass it and stuff like that. Still great. I think it's also the fact that these singles, not just Boulevard of Broken Dreams, the singles in general have been played out on this
Yes.
album. I mean, it was inescapable from hearing Boulevard, from hearing Wake Me Up, from hearing American Idiot. At least once a day in the 2000s. But a couple I considered was one I did consider Wake Me Up When September Ends because I think to me personally, I think it's the best single of the big four, even more than Holiday, though Holiday's a strong second. And it was the first song I ever learned to play on guitar. So Green Day was my first song to play on guitar, and it was that opening little dun 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 dun. It was so
Man,
easy to play.
That was your first one to play?
That was the first one I learned to play on guitar.
Look
I
at
just
that,
looked up the
man.
tabs and I just kept doing it over and over again until I was able to do it. So, and And but I decided not to go with it. I decided to go with what I think is kind of like the defining song of American Idiot and kind of the defining song of the concept record that is American Idiot. And I went with Jesus of Suburbia. We've got that short film-esque music video that went along with it. I remember watching that whole thing as a kid. And I think in the context of the album, it's an incredibly long song. Obviously, it's like 9 minutes long.
Yeah.
Yeah, 8 minutes long. But while listening to it on the album, I felt like it just kind of worked.
Yeah.
It just kind of works, and it's consistently good. There's not like a part of it where I'm like, man, it's dragging. Like Jesus Suburbia, the whole time, I feel like is just a really great song, and it switches it up just enough that you're constantly getting reinvested in it for the entire time, and especially on the album. Like I feel like it's perfectly fine to have a song that's long, especially if you're combining every other song. It's no shorter than all these other ones you've decided to put a slash on, Billy Joe. But I love Jesus of Suburbia. I think it's the one that stands out to me the most now. The melodies are good, the lyrics are incredible, so that's my pick. I guess, what do you think of that, John? And then what is your worst off American Idiot?
I think it's a good pick. All of the like massively long songs, like it's the most easily digestible, I guess. It's just, for me, it's a commitment. Like this album itself is a commitment. And I feel like that's the only really detriment to it. Like I kind of liken it to, like, I'm a big reader, but there's like certain series like The Wheel of Time that is like 14 books where I'm probably not going to revisit it because it's such a commitment. I think that's why I don't listen to this one as much. And going to like my least favorite, I think it's definitely Are We the Waiting. This has been like a skip for me for a while. I feel like since I first really had it, I was like, I don't really like this one. It's in such a long album to kind of have this song that kind of stays in one spot. It's kind of monotonous. I need, like, if I'm really sitting down and listening to this, I need to be constantly stimulated and be brought in. And this one kind of like, I just find it a little boring, and I'd say it's easily my least favorite.
I can understand that, your reasoning. I definitely wouldn't say Are We the Waiting's my least favorite. I think the transition from Are We the Waiting into Saint Jimmy is so good, and obviously Saint Jimmy was a contender for one of my favorite songs as well. Saint Jimmy's a ripper. So I think the build up to Saint Jimmy is good, but I understand just as a song, like I can understand that pick. But my pick, I went with Extraordinary Girl. And the reason I did this was, one, like, anytime I've thought about putting on American Idiot, there's never once in my life where I was like, I can't wait until Extraordinary Girl plays.
It's a good one. Yeah.
Like, it's just truly, and I actually forgot it was even on the album. And the other one I considered was Give Me Novocaine. I thought it was a little weaker, but I like the Give Me Novocaine into She's a Rebel. I think it's really good. I ended up not picking Give Me Novocaine.
I like Novocaine.
I thought it was too good of a song to consider, but I thought it was maybe a little weaker. But Extraordinary Girl, I think it has like one of the most monotonous kind of choruses. I think it's a pretty forgettable song. It's just never stuck out to me at all as an exceptional song. And I know some people like The Governator or Shoplifter or something, but those are just like, I think they're extra tracks, aren't they? I think. I'm not 100% bonus tracks or something on deluxe edition.
I feel like I don't remember them as much, so I think you may be right. We should have checked, but yeah.
It's all good. We didn't pick them, so it doesn't matter. But even if we were to consider those are just like fun, fast punk Green Day songs, and there's nothing wrong with them. So like I can't pick them. I think Extraordinary Girl is one of the weaker tracks on here. So what do you think, John?
No, you're 100% right. I would have I considered this one as well. Dude, I don't know what it is. I used to agree with you on Novocaine, but then like when I was doing the tier list, it's like 3 years ago now. I was like, man, like once this picks up, like I'm so bad with lyrics, like, but like Give Me a Little Kiss Goodnight. Like I love that part where the guitar kind of picks up and.
No, there's good parts of it. This is why I didn't end up picking it. It's just, I was like, there's just too much good going on here, even though I felt like it might have been a weaker spot. Yeah. And also, then it goes into She's a Rebel, and the transition's pretty good. She's a Rebel is like an awesome song. So, but yeah, I guess we'll move on to the follow-up to American Idiot, which I think a lot of people were probably disappointed by, but it now has come around where a lot of people are considering this the better album over
Yeah.
American Idiot. And some people are kind of revisiting this as kind of like a forgotten masterpiece in a lot of ways. Obviously, it's not forgotten, it's a Green Day album, but less talked about within the discography as Dookie or Insomniac or American Idiot was. So I guess we'll get into this one. And I'll go first on this. And there was honestly a lot of like choices that were going in my head. I think the title track 21st Century Breakdown is really good. I thought Christian's Inferno was a pretty
Yes.
good song. I thought that ending track, American Eulogy, Mass Hysteria, was a really cool just pickup right after 21 Guns. And I thought that was like a really cool song as in consideration for me. But the song I went with was just, I think it's just such a straightforward, fast, fun punk song on here. And I think it has great melodies, which is Murder City. Um, and it just gets stuck in my head. I've put it on so many playlists. Like I didn't want to just pick like the fast like punk song that was on this like big concept record that has a lot of these mid-tempo breakdowns and stuff like that, but I ended up just kind of like this is the one I revisit as a singular song the most. I always feel like 21st Century should be consumed as an album more than individual tracks, and so as an individual track, Murder City works the best for me, but that's just my take on it. What do you think, John? And what do you think is the best?
Yeah, it's a really good pick. We're gonna stick in the same area on the album too. This dude, I don't know what it is, but like I love listening to this record now. Like
Mhm.
I like it way more than American Idiot in 2024. And this is another one of my favorite Green Day songs, and I feel like it's a weird pick. And then you told me you considered it too. I'm going Last of the American Girls, and I think I'm picking it because I cannot listen to this song without it being stuck in my head for like multiple days.
The
It's
melody's so good. Yeah.
it's so simple too. It's like there's not much to it, especially on like kind of like another epic album. This is probably one of the more vanilla tracks, but like I mean, music is melody, right? And this has the melody. This if you I feel like a lot of people when I say I really like this song, they're like, "Huh, I can't really place that one." I would give this one another shot. Like I think Last of the American Girls is just stupid catchy.
It's
And
really catchy. I agree with you. When I heard that, I thought the melody was so infectious that it was up for
yeah.
consideration. Definitely. I was like, that's really cool. But there's a lot of good tracks on here. But yeah, I think I'm with you at this point now. I think 21st Century Breakdown is better than American Idiot, and I'd rather revisit it as well. But um, let's get into the worst on here, and I'll start us off here. And the worst I'm gonna pick off of 21st Century Breakdown is the single "Know Your Enemy." And my reasoning for this is the part where I don't know if this is true. You know, I'm speculating. It feels like a studio interference song. It feels like a song they're like, we need another, like a hit single like American Idiot. And that's what Know Your Enemy feels like to me. It just feels like a B side from American Idiot. And I just don't think it's very interesting. Just this constant repeating of "Know your enemy, know your enemy," and it has all of the trappings of like this is supposed to be a big single. This
Yeah.
is supposed to be the big sing along song, and I never liked it. And it was one of the reasons I wasn't hyped about it when it was coming out after American Idiot. And I definitely used to consider American Idiot better than 21st Century Breakdown, where I felt like this song was just trying to recapture what American Idiot did, but 21st Century Breakdown as a whole album is definitely not trying to do that. It's doing its own thing completely. But I feel like Know Your Enemy really is just like this leftover holdover reminder of like this is trying to be an American Idiot style hit single. So that's my take on it. What do you think, John? And what do you think is the worst?
Man, that is like a perfect explanation, man. I when I saw your pick, I was like, yeah, Know Your Enemy is kind of like it's of all the singles Green Day's had over time, I'd say it's the most forgettable. But like, yeah, that makes a ton of sense. So,
Yeah,
great job with the justification there. I
you're
this
welcome.
I don't know. There's like a couple songs on here that I'm like, but like when I'm listening to this record, it's not one I really skip around. I just kind of like sit and listen. And there's like one that kind of drags a little bit for me, and I'm gonna go with Restless Heart Syndrome. I don't think it's like a terrible song. Like I don't we start to get into the bad songs very very soon, but if I'm picking one where I'm like I don't really feel like it, it's this one. It just kind of it feels like filler, and when there's this many songs, it's you could take a pass here and there.
Yeah, I would definitely be on the border of calling this filler and like leaning towards yeah. So I definitely understand it. Restless Heart Syndrome was always one that I thought was a bit of a weaker part of the album as
Yeah.
well. That and I think like the second time they do Viva La Gloria, or
Yeah,
whatever,
that's
is a
the
little
other
weak.
one I wrote down. But I
Yeah,
love the first one so much that I give it a pass.
yeah, the first one's really good. So I think it picks up though towards the end. I think it's like the slightest dip in here after
Yeah.
maybe Murder City, but like I think it. This is a great Green Day record. I think it really is better than American Idiot. So, but yeah, we'll move on to we're getting into the dark times.
Yeah.
So this was definitely the moment I think a lot of people just really started getting a sour taste in Green Day. Obviously, Green Day has had many eras of fans souring on their music and gaining new fans with it. The issue with Uno is I feel like it didn't gain it soured more fans than it gained
Yeah.
new ones at least. But we'll get into what this kind of record is and stuff like that. And we're doing all of these separate. We have the trilogy, the Uno Dos Tres, and we did all of them separate so we could pick it out here. And I guess John, start us off. What do you think is the best track on Uno, and how do you feel about Uno?
Yeah, I want to say this too. Like, I've been very hyperbolic in the past about how bad the trilogy is. I think my main issue with these three records, and we're talking about them individually, but like, I feel like up to this point, every Green Day album has kind of had a feel to it. It kind of like Green Day has been like such a unique. I mean, I'm saying unique, but you know what I mean. Like each album is separate, and then these three records, they feel like Foxborough Hot Tubs or kind of like the Network. It feels like it's kind of Green Day, but like there's just no charm on these albums. It just feels like a huge collection of B-sides. And that's not to say there's not songs that I can get down with, but like if you're putting out three records consecutively, and I don't know if a single song is like in my top 30 or 40, maybe 50 Green Day songs, that's kind of why like I'm pretty sour on these. But like there's one song, and I really didn't get into it until I picked up Demolicious, and it was one of the tracks on there, and I considered it a standout, and that's going to be Carpe Diem.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's not one of my favorite Green Day songs. It is one that I find myself humming along to once in a while. And looking at it, like I didn't really consider anything else. I think this is a fine record, but I mean, I guess Carpe Diem would be the standout. I'm not passionate at all about my pick, and I won't fight you over it if I'm wrong. So I'm just gonna go with it.
Fine. I will say out of the trilogy, Uno is definitely the best, and Uno is definitely the one that's could pass as like a Green Day side project. That's like a pretty that has its fans and has its charm and stuff like that. But as part of like a 3 album trilogy, it definitely weakens Uno entirely. But I think there is good songs on Uno. I think Uno probably has the most chance of like if somebody really like this green. I know some people I've seen put Uno pretty high in like album rankings and stuff like that, which I wouldn't agree with. But if you were gonna pick one from the trilogy, I think Uno has the best song. I think it's the first 4 tracks are all pretty decent. They're all pretty similar in quality. But I went with Nuclear Family, the starting track. I remember hearing this and just kind of thinking like, oh, this is kind of going to be like the Network, or this is going to be like Foxborough Hot Tubs, and it's like just a pretty straightforward standard like Green Day song, and I was pretty hyped for it. I was like, oh, this is just going to be a collection of kind of old school sounding Green Day songs with like just a bunch of like B-sides or something like that, and I would have been fine with that if that's what this ended up being, just a bunch of quick, fast 2-minute punk songs. It's not what it ended up being, but if it was just this, I think it'd be totally fine. And I think Nuclear Family is a fun song. It's a good song. I think Carpe Diem's a good song too.
Yeah.
So we'll
Yeah.
get into the worst here. What is the worst off of Uno, John?
I mean, again, it's the worst song on an album I don't like, but I don't think it's god awful. But I'm gonna go with "Kill the DJ." It's just goofy, unnecessary. You know, like I don't really need Green Day to play this type of song. I don't have much to say about it. I just don't like this song. I don't really like this album very much, and I feel like this is the worst one.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
What?
It's also, I remember it was the single with the music video, and this is when this was coming out. Everyone was kind of like, "What the fuck happened to Green Day?"
Yeah.
That's what everyone was kind of saying when they heard this song. And I'll say this: I think "Kill the DJ" is not a good song. I would never really listen to it. But this is also the start of, because you hear Nuclear Family, you hear Carpe Diem, and you're like, okay, they're just gonna kind of do like the Network or something like that.
Yeah.
What we didn't know is that they decided to go into this genre, which they refuse to let go to this day, which is what I call this "Hey kids, let's rock and roll" music, where it's just like, "Hey kids, let's rock and roll," and like then this song starts playing. It's like this generic, like kind of pop rock and roll music, and "Kill the DJ" is like the start of it. It's the first
Yeah.
one, but they have multiple songs on this trilogy that do this, and I hate it. I hate rock and roll Green Day. Punk Green Day, always. Rock and roll Green Day is the worst in my opinion. I really don't like it. It leaves a sour taste in my mouth. But the one I decided to go with is not necessarily that. It's Sweet 16. I think this is just a really boring, corny song, and some of the lamest writing I've seen from Billy Joe up until this point. And it really makes me think of that meme I think I sent you one time, where it was like old Green Day versus new Green Day, where old Green Day was like singing about like drinking alcohol and pissing blood and eyeballs popping out of their skulls, and new Green Day is just like, "I love you, my sweet Valentine, and also the government sucks." And this is like peak like that meme. So I really don't like Sweet 16. I think it's a
Yeah.
bad song. Um,
I think melodically it's all right, but yeah, it's
Yeah.
by no means a good song.
Yeah, lyrically, I think was what really got it when I was listening to this, and I was like, I really don't want to listen to like this, like really just corny little song like this. I don't get it. But yeah, let's go on to Dose here. Well, there's not too much to talk about with these. I think as these continue to go on, they get progressively worse. Where I think Uno is a passable, decent record. I think Dose is very mediocre and definitely not one I would ever revisit. And then we'll get to the trade. I think is probably the worst thing Green Day has ever put out. I'll stand by that. But I guess I'll start us off with the best one here. And just listening to this, Stray Heart was immediately the one I was like, this has a really catchy melody. This sounds like the most fleshed out song on here. The rest of these just kind of sound like, a lot of them sound like throwaway, just like tracks that, they slapped onto here. And then I found Stray Heart, I guess, was a single at some point. It's like definitely the most popular song on the record. I had no idea, but I can definitely tell it's the most fleshed out in my opinion. But what do you think is the best song on Dose?
Yeah, I'm gonna keep this short and sweet, man. Like, I think this is the worst Green Day album. I think this is worse than Trey, in my opinion. And
It's tough. Flip a coin. So
I just picked Lazy Bones just because I didn't really want to force myself to listen to this album again. So this is the only one I really remember, and I don't think it's bad. I don't think Stray Heart is bad, but they're just it's like I would call it like a C minus B side. Like they're just so lifeless tracks. Lazy Bones. Yeah. I don't care if you like it or not. Honestly, it's just like such a middling song.
Yeah. Well, I thought originally when I saw you sent your list, I thought Lazy Bones was your least favorite, and I was like, Lazy Bones, like, it's definitely not the worst on here, so that's fine for the best. It's not the worst, high praise, but I'll start off with my worst, and then John, you'll tell everyone the actual worst. I picked Fuck Time, which is close. Once again more of this just goofy, hey kids, let's rock and roll. I hate it. I hate the vibe of this. I hate the lyrics. I hate rock and roll Green Day. Fuck Time is a shitty song in my opinion. I don't like it. But go ahead, John, tell everyone what the real worst is.
Yeah, it's Nightlife. This was Nightlife. Yeah. I mean, Nightlife and Fuck Time are both like, they're just embarrassing songs. Like, really just like, this I feel like up to like from 1994 to like 2009 or whenever this was, maybe I think it is '09, maybe 10, 11. Green Day was like my favorite band, so I was buying these as they came out, and like this, it was like Dose, where I was like, God, they are just dead. I mean, I think that's I've come around to it. It is what it is at this point. I don't like it, but I mean, Nightlife and Fuck Time are just the absolute lowest of the lows for Green Day.
Yeah, Nightlife is like an insane song. Like I saw you pick that. I couldn't even remember for the life of me. I only listened to Uno Dos. I probably listened to Uno like maybe 2-3 times, but Dos and Trace was once. And I probably skipped a bunch of tracks because when I was younger, I remember my stepbrother had all 3 of these, and I had nothing to listen to at the time. And so I was like, oh, fuck it. I'll check out the new Uno Dos Trace from Green Day. Like, at this point in my life, during, 2000, when these are coming out, I had no interest in Green Day whatsoever. I was into just, a lot of, Ordcore, a lot of, Story So Far was coming out and stuff like that. And I had no interest in listening to, legacy punk bands at all. So I missed a bunch. But I listened to this, and I was like, okay, well, I'm not missing out on anything that's going on with Green Day at this point, when I got to Dose especially. But Nightlife, it's like a weird rap song.
It's god-awful.
Yeah, it's one of the worst. I would say, is it the worst song they've ever written, do you think?
Potentially.
It's potentially, yeah. So I think Dominated Love Slave beats the shit out of Nightlife.
it's pretty close. I don't know. I really dislike Dominated Love Slave, but at least it's supposed to be a joke. I don't think any of these are supposed to be legitimate.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But we'll get into my least favorite Green Day one. I think Trey is worse. I think there's a few okay tracks on Dose where I feel like even the best tracks on Trey I don't like, you wouldn't listen to. But go ahead. Should I? Yes, I'm starting this. No, you're starting off. What's the best song on Trey?
So I don't know. I must have been in I was listening to this morning. We started this is a long ass video, by the way. I'm realizing we decided to sit down and do this at 7. So I got up at 5:45, and I let me listen to Trey again. I don't know if it's because I was half awake or what, but I wasn't hating it. I thought this may be my favorite of the trilogy, which is
really,
which is kind of I know people don't really like this, but there was a song, and I'm not even super familiar with it. It was 8th Avenue Serenade. And I was like, this is all right. This isn't bad. And I thought, Ex-Kid was all right. I thought 99 Revolutions was all right. I wasn't really despising many. But I think 8th Avenue Serenade is actually a decent track. It may be my favorite across the trilogy.
It just soured me because it's the third one of these, and also my least. We'll have to get into that. I'll get into the best first. But I said my best was Sex, Drugs, and Violence, and I just think it's an okay song. I think it's fine. I wasn't super into it. 8th Avenue Serenade is fine as well. There's a couple tracks in here that I was like, these are fine, but they're not songs I would listen to. That's the thing. These are fine tracks. If I'm comparing them, but would I ever want to listen to these songs? No, I think they're relatively generic and uninspired. And there's so much other music that I could spend my time listening to than trying to force myself to be the world's biggest Green Day fan and love Uno Dos Tres. I just can't find myself doing it. But Sex, Drugs, and Violence, I think is decent. So, and 8th Avenue Serenade's fine as well. But go ahead. What's the worst song on Trey?
Yeah. So I feel like the entire reason they did this trilogy is because their drummer's name is Trey, which is kind of why we got the quality.
Seems like
I picked one, and I feel like a lot of people like this song, which is a little confounding to me, and it's the reason why I picked it. Dirty Rotten Bastards. I was looking what people considered the best songs off the trilogy, since I'm widely not too familiar. I every other Green Day thing I'm pretty locked in, and I was like, oh, let me just listen to a couple of the best and worst, and this was on people's favorite, and I was like, this is I think one of the worst songs on here, and it's another one of the ones I call an Offspring style song. It's the weird one. But yeah, I just genuinely dislike Dirty Rotten Bastards. I don't find anything appealing about it. It's just kind of more of the goofy I guess what you're saying, rock and roll, Archie Comics, Green Day.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know. Dirty Rob Bass is a little surprising because when I was listening to it, I was like, this at least starts pretty good. I mean, it's definitely I don't know. It doesn't need to be as long as it is by any
Yeah.
means, but it definitely wasn't the one I thought stood out to me. The one that stood out the most to me was Brutal Love, and that might be the reason I say Trey is my least favorite because it starts off with like one of my least favorite Green Day songs I've ever heard, which is an absolutely boring, boring, boring track to start us off. And also if you're listening to these all three in a row and you finally get the Trey and it starts with Brutal Love, that's a hard buy-in to me. That's a hard buy-in to continue listening to Trey. Like getting through Brutal Love is a challenge in of itself. I don't know how if anybody really likes this song, but I'll have to. I mean, I'm not going to really re-listen to these, but I'll take your word for it and say Uno's better. Now, or I mean, Trey's better. Now that I'm kind of looking at it here, there's a lot more. Trey doesn't have Nightlife, so that's already making it
Yeah.
a stronger album.
It has
And looking at it,
Yeah,
yeah,
it has Drama Queen though. So dude, Brutal Love, like I'd like to hear a mashup of Brutal Love and then 60% by No Effects. I feel like the chord progression is very similar. But I
I can
don't
see
I
that.
don't hate Brutal Love. I just feel like it goes on way too long and it's super generic. Like we've
It's
heard
super.
like there's probably like a
That's the
thousand
biggest
songs,
offender.
yeah, in
Yeah,
like the
at
50s and
least
60s alone that sound like this.
yeah, I'll actually at least say, like, at least Nightlife was like a weird experimental song. It didn't work, but at least it was trying something. I feel like Brutal Love was just like the most generic thing I've heard for like 4.5 minutes. So I'll at least give Nightlife originality points in the realm of Green Day, but that's all I'll give it. But let's go to Revolution Radio, which is my girlfriend's favorite Green Day album,
Wow.
and she really loves this one. And I will say this from the and out of the 2010s records, I think this is easily the strongest one, and actually has a lot of really great tracks in it. I think Revolution Radio's overall pretty solid album, and I'll start us off with my best, and it's going to be Bang Bang. There was a couple I considered, but I think just Bang Bang just is like what it, especially you're off the heels of Uno Dos Tres. As soon as you hear Bang Bang, you're like, oh, this song is better than anything that was on Uno Dos
Yes.
Tres. Just immediately. You're like, this is, and your pick also, you hear that and you're like, this is better than anything off of Uno Dos Tres. Like there's not a single song that comes close to the quality that Bang Bang is. But I consider it a lot. I think Still Breathing is a great single. I think it has such a catchy, infectious hook. I think Too Dumb to Die, very similar to I think We've Had Enough. I think I called it Radio, but Alkaline Trios We Had Enough. There's like the chorus is very similar, but it's a really great track. And I overall I think there's a few weak songs in here which we'll get to, but I think Revolution Radio is honestly like a relatively solid Green Day album. So what do you think, John? What is your favorite?
Yeah. Um I think there's two clear standouts in this album. I do feel like this is fine. This is not even close to one of my favorite Green Days. I feel like there's a lot of fluff and filler on here. It without a doubt it's an improvement over the trilogy, but I feel like it's got Bang Bang and it's got Revolution Radio. To me, are like the singles, the best songs. Like there was zero debate for me. It was going to be one of these two. I think they're like up here in the S tier, and then there's nothing else on here that's even in B. It's not a bad record, but like yeah, it's Revolution Radio and it's Bang Bang. I feel like you could drop those two on your playlist, and the
Oh
rest of
yeah.
this is kind of it's all right. It's a Green Day record. It's pretty good, but it doesn't sniff anything from the '90s or even the up to 2009. Personally,
Sure, sure. I think I like it more than you do because I think Still Breathing is a really good signal. It
yeah,
was definitely in
it's all right.
contention, but
It's pretty good.
yeah. We'll get into the worst here, and I guess I'll start with my worst, which is Say Goodbye. And this is like we're entering like a little bit of the Hey Kids rock and roll mixed with like this a tinge of Imagine Dragons arena
Yeah.
rock sound. And despise it, don't like it. It's not my thing. It's not why I listen to Green Day. It sounds really generic, uninspired. So I don't like Say Goodbye either. There's that intro that say goodbye, and the drums really do sound like that fucking like we're marching out to the ball game, guys. Let's so
Yeah.
let's get ready to rock and roll with Green Day. So I don't like it. I think it's a pretty bad track on this one. But what's your pick for the worst, John?
Yeah, Say Goodbye is definitely was a contender. I went with Youngblood, dude. I've always hated this song.
Mm.
The chorus feels like one of those filler choruses where like they're like, oh, we don't know what to do. Let's just say Young Blood and we'll figure it out later. And then they just left it. It's so boring. And I think I shit all over this song in the tier list. And Green Day fans will fight you over like pretty much everything. Maybe not as much as Blink fans. Nobody really fights me over Youngblood being terrible. Now that I've said it, maybe someone will. But I mean, this is like another. This could have been on the trilogy. I think it's that bad.
Yeah, I would say this is the second worst one for me pretty easily, but I still don't think it's as close as to Say Goodbye, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's not good. It's not good. It's just not as close. Like Say Goodbye is grating and Youngblood is just kind of boring.
Yeah.
But it's totally, definitely the second worst, and so pretty definitively. But we'll move on to Uno Dos Tres was like the most controversial. Then Revolution Radio came back, and it wasn't really controversial. People like it. This is the most controversial.
Yes.
Green Day album by far, even more than Uno Dos Tres. Most people just thought Uno Dos Tres was kind of boring and bloated, and they're like, it doesn't need to be this big and stuff like that. This is a huge departure from basically every style that Green Day has done so far, and I think me and John have both said though we kind of like it. It's not that bad. We think it got a little overhated. I will say this is it doesn't really sound like Green Day. They're kind of just ripping off what the Hives did in the 2000s, so it's already kind of a dated style. But as songs, I don't think it's as bad as people are saying. It's definitely no masterpiece, but I'd rather listen to Father of All over Uno Dos Tres. And what do you think, John? And what do you think's the best song on here as well?
Yeah, I definitely think it's overhated. It doesn't sound like Green Day. It's not even close to my favorite Green Day, or it's probably towards the bottom. But in terms of like a record that's got like a feel, like I was saying before, like Uno Dos Tres don't have it. This one does, right? So I think there's a handful of good songs on here. I think the first two are pretty good. I think your pick is pretty good, but I think my favorite is going to be Sugar Youth, which you and I have discussed. It feels the most like a classic Green Day song. It's kind of got a weird spot. I feel like this could have been a single and maybe people would have been more open to the sound. It's a good bridge between classic Green Day and this kind of whatever it is they're doing here, the Swedish rock stuff. But I'd say this is a short record, which kind of works in its favor because I don't know how much of this style you really need. But this record's at least like 50% good, right? If you're going to make a short album, at least make it half good. And Sugar Youth is my favorite, always has been. It's a good Green Day track.
Yeah. No, I mean, I will say this. Obviously, the whole album is a little bit in that vein of the "Hey kids, let's rock and roll." The marketing was definitely that as well. So there is like a lot of tracks that I don't like on this. Sugar Youth was the one where I was like, oh, this actually sounds like a Green Day song, and like a relatively good one. That was the first one, and I really think they should have stuck with the Sugar Youth style throughout this whole record, and it would have been way more well received. But they went way too far into like the garage rock revival Hive sound from the 2000s, which it's not bad, but it's just not Green Day, and it's a hard pill to swallow. I definitely get it, but I think the best song in here, I'm going with "Take the Money and Crawl." I actually think it's kind of a banger.
Yeah, it is.
I think this song kind of goes in. I think it's really fun. Almost has like this like 90s like alternative rock sound to it, mixed in with the some kind of techno aspects and stuff like that. And maybe some like electronica drum and bass with the remix on the the vocals and things like that. But I think it's like a kind of a banger. Like I'd put it on a playlist. I think it kind of goes hard. I'm not gonna lie. I actually heard this and I was like, this song actually kind of rules.
Yeah, I got
I was
I got
surprised.
4 of these songs on my playlist, man. I think
Yeah.
Take the Money is a good song. It's fun.
Yeah, I've never listened to this, by the way, up until we did this. Like, I never even considered listening to this. I had no interest.
Yeah.
So, honestly, not as bad as I was expecting by any means. And like I said, Sugar Youth and Take the Money and Crawl, legitimately good songs. So, but we'll get into the worst here, John. And what do you think the worst off of Father of All is?
Dude, I think I got this one. It's I Was a Teenager.
Yeah, dude, you definitely got it.
This is it's not even close. I mean, I know I took the one. Yours is definitely number 2, but this, if you want like a case in point for why people don't like this album, I feel like you could just put this song on and aside from the album cover, it's the worst thing about this record.
Yeah, this album cover is really bad
It's
too,
terrible.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh god, it's awful. Plus, they tried to make this unicorn like a marketable plushie or something
It's
like
still
that.
around. It's
Yeah, it's horrible. It's horrible. It's such a gimmick. Billy Joe, true capitalist. But I agree. I Was a Teenager. One, I hate the song title already. I despise that song title. If you're gonna do a parody of I Was a Teenage something, I Was a Teenager is the laziest, stupidest joke you could possibly make. It's like a joke you just make like when you're hanging around with your friends. Like, what if you wrote a song called I Was a Teenager and you're like high or something? Like, what? It's stupid. And the song sucks as well. There's a couple songs on here that I consider, like I said, like I thought this was decent, but there is definitely songs in here that suck that I would not want to listen to.
Yeah.
Oh Yeah was
Oh,
another
yeah.
one. I thought Oh Yeah was very bad. But the one I went with was Junkies on a High. And I would say like it starts off like okay-ish, I guess, but there really is so much of that just arena rock, yeah, stuff in there that just that I can't remember how it sounds, but when I hear it, it just triggers something in my brain where I'm just like, I don't like this. I don't like this. I don't want to listen to this. I get what you're doing here. This is like I am not into it. And then right after, it's also in between Sugar Youth and Take the Money and Crawl, which I would say are the obviously the 2 best songs in the album, and actually good songs, which is kind of crazy that I would even say that Father of All has like 2 legitimately good songs, 2 songs that are better than anything off of Uno Dos Tracy,
Yeah.
which is in my opinion, which is kind of crazy. Like I think they're actually good, but yeah, overall, obviously this is like pretty low on Green Day's discography, but I think a little overhated. I don't think it's as bad as some people are making it out to be. It's definitely no like 0 out of 10, which I know a lot of people have rated Father of All as like one of the like low, like incredibly low. So but we'll go in here to the final Green Day album. This is a super long video. So thank you guys for sticking with us to this point. We knew it was going to be long. 1, it's Green Day. 2, they have so many albums. We decided to do Uno Dos Tres separate, which extends it already. But let's hurry up and do this. We've talked about this album a good bit, John. And I'll start us off with my favorite song of the Saviors. Which I will say is obviously better than Uno Dos Tres, obviously better than Father of All, but I still think falls behind Revolution Radio quite a bit, and I definitely think gets a little overrated by Green Day fans now, is just because it's the new Green Day album, but it's not as bad as when I originally heard it that I thought it was. I was definitely a little too hard on it. I think you said you're a little too hard on it as well.
Yep.
There is some quality tracks on here, and I will say this, a song that I think is better than anything off of Uno Dos Tres, anything off of Father of All, and anything off Revolution Radio is Dilemma, which I think is the best song they've written in a while, and I think it's a really great track. Just such a good chorus. So I really like this song a lot. I think it's obviously the standout to me. And it's a great single, so I'm going with Dilemma, but there's a few other considerations. Strange Days Are Here to Stay.
So
It's
good.
really good. Yeah, and I actually like The American Dream Is Killing Me. If he just didn't say TikTok and taxes, I think I'd be able to listen to it more often. But and look, Mono Brains was decent, and the one you pick is good as well. So go ahead, John. What do you think the best is?
Dude, I've really come around to this album. I was way too hard on it. It's like one of my, I think it's in my top 5 of the year now. Like that's like Green Day on first listen is like impossible to do, but I think there's like for my considerations for best, American Dream, I don't think so, but I would say like Look Ma,
Yeah.
Dilemma, maybe 1981. Strange Days is probably my number 2. Then
Yeah, strange. Good.
the one I picked, which is going to be Living in the 20s. And then I think the title track Saviors, that chorus gets stuck in my head all the time. Like that's an absolute banger. So there's like 6 or 7 really good tracks on here. I think the only downside of this record is there's a lot of fluff, and we're going to talk about some of the fluff, but Living in the 20s is really good.
In my mind, I was always getting Living in the 20s and 1981 mixed up. I couldn't remember which one.
I think I am too.
What.
Living in the 20s is actually the one that sounds like Father of All. When you said it, I was like, yeah, I am mixing them up. Living in the 20s sounds like a good Father of All song.
Yeah, because 1981 is one I know a lot of people said they liked it. I thought it was pretty generic overall, and there's a lot. Coma City I thought was a boring song as well. One-Eyed Bastard I really don't like. There's a good bit of songs in here that I think are pretty stale and pretty uninspired and teetering on basically sounding like they could have been on Uno or something like that. And to a degree, I still stand by this, where I think like if Green Day took the time to flesh out Uno Dos Tres, that you could have got something like Saviors. If you decided to concentrate on one album, you could get a pretty solid record, like I think Saviors is. But there's still elements of just fluff on here, and I think my least favorite on here is Corvette Summer, which I think is just that. I keep saying it, that Hey Kids rock and roll sound at its worst. I really hate I hate hearing the word rock and roll in a Green Day song just to begin with. And like I guess some people are like, oh, it's just like a fun summer song and stuff like that. I'm like, I don't know, dude, it's too corny for me. It's too corny for me personally. And when there's like a song like Dilemma on here, and which I think is so good, and then there's also a song like Corvette Summer, it feels a little all over the place, where it doesn't feel like diversity. It more feels like different songs are being slapped on a record. But I don't like Corvette Summer. I know you're less harsh on it. You think it's at least a little bit enjoyable. But what do you think the worst song on here is?
Yeah, Corvette Summer is Dylan's least favorite too. I think it's pretty catchy. It's by no means a standout, but I think it's fine. I mean, yeah, it's not great. I'm going with Bobby Socks, and partially because this was a single, if I'm remembering correctly. They played it when I saw them, and the lyrics are just terrible in this song. It's super cringe. This is, to me, it's the most obvious example of a song that sounds like the trilogy.
Yes.
I considered a handful on here. Coma City, I don't really like. Susie Chapstick, I don't really like. And Father to His Son, because of the sentiment, I kind of omitted it, but I don't really like it either. But I think Bobby Socks is the weak point, and is a track 3 and a single. I don't really understand it, but
it's bad. That's I'm trying to remember the chorus now. It's like the girlfriend one, like I want to be your boyfriend.
I want to be your boyfriend, girl. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, it sucks. I remember that the lyrics suck on that one. I know a lot of people do like that one. It's also a little too long. I think it's like 4+ minutes, and I feel like it just doesn't do enough. It's very mid-tempo, very boring. Very generic. It definitely feels like it's a leftover from like an Uno Dos Tres beat cut or something like that. I mean, it would be one of the stronger songs on Uno Dos Tres, if I'm being honest. Like, not by that much, but it's a little bit. But Corvette Summer, I feel like would fit in nicely on Dos or something like that. But it's not like the worst thing. It's not like so. I mean, Saviors, like I said, I've come around as it's a decent Green Day record. So, but we did it.
Yeah, it's the longest video we've ever done. I think we're like over an hour and a half.
Yeah. We knew this was going to be a long one, dude. So yeah, sorry. I don't know if we rambled too much. It's just once you get into the conversation, the flow of things, you just want to talk about things, make your point. You remember stories you want to tell, moments you've heard these records, thoughts you had before. So it happens. But thank you guys for like sticking with us this long. If you're still here, that's pretty incredible. I know some of you definitely do watch the entire thing, because we definitely get some angry comments that are like about the later album. So I'm like, hey, at least they watched the whole thing. If you're gonna leave a mean comment, at least let me know you trudged through the entire video, seething and gripping your desk and gritting your teeth the whole time, as you can't believe the decisions we make. And obviously, this is just our subjective opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, it shouldn't even need to be said. I don't know why some people really do treat this like it's like an objective thing. So it's obviously not. And like I said, a lot of these we're just going with gut instincts or just kind of like a feel of what we think might be the worst, especially the early stuff, which is so rock solid. But yeah, I guess anything you want to say, John, before we wrap up here?
Yeah, I just want to kind of reiterate what you said. Like this is literally just our opinions. This is my favorite band of all time. Everything I said is like, it's like I'll love Green Day no matter what they do. So like please be nice. These are just our personal opinions. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I do want to say, if you like Green Day and you're looking for kind of like the Kerplunk-ish stuff, there's two bands that I full-heartedly support. I've got their records on the website. I have one right here, which is going to be Bad Year, Moancore. The other one I have on cassette, it's going to be the Kimberly Stakes, Big Noise. They're two of my favorite records of the last couple of years. Very, very Green Day, especially Kerplunk, Dookie, Insomniac influence. So go check those out. There'll be a link to the web store down below, and also our Discord, where you can recommend videos. You could talk to everyone. We've got 300 plus people, I think, now. We're just talking about punk rock all the time, especially on Fridays with all the new releases, if you're looking to get into some new stuff. And Elliot's even got like a record of the week they're going to start doing something for. So go check it out. If you want to hang out and talk punk rock all the time, or tell us how terrible we are, you can actually add us directly on there and let us know how much you like Bobby Sox and Corvette Summer. But yeah, that's really it. Anything else you want to say, Elliot, before we wrap this up?
No, man. I think we're thinking about maybe doing like the Suicide Machines or Less Than Jake coming up soon. So get ready for it. All right.
All right.
All right. But thank you for watching, and peace out, guys.